So why am I thinking about connecting publishing your work? The very beginning of the activity of preparing your research, not only when you have done with the research and then you try to write based on your materials, including the findings. Journals, especially reputable journals, high-ranked journals, what they are looking for is contribution, knowledge contribution, or sometimes the higher the rank the journals, it should be theoretical contribution. Okay, we know that some journals are more oriented towards applications, more practical in orientation towards professional groups as their target of audience. But mostly when we talk about scientific journals, we talk about academic audience. And the higher the rank the journals, they require a serious or significant contribution in theoretical understandings. So without preparing our work from the very beginning, that is to design the research that will have a significant contribution, it would be very difficult to find your works be published in any reputable or especially high-ranked journals. I found myself had difficulties in doing what I now share with you, especially during my doctoral education in Australia. Coming from the background that, during that time, especially before the period I did my PhD, publication, scientific publication, although there had been some or many Indonesian researchers that already published their works in very good journals, but for most of for average lecturers in universities, doing research was not obligatory. Also published scientifically in journals. So moving or transforming myself from that kind of researcher, I did already research before that as university student, bachelor students, master degree students, or as junior researchers. But usually, those research, we produce scriptsy or thesis, but not published yet in scientific journals. In many research reports, but not in scientific journals again. So when I tried myself to be involved in the scientific community, especially in my field of expertise in human resource management, particularly human resource management in multinational companies context. And I did also some part of that research in relation to industrial relations condition in Indonesia, where multinational companies at that time were facing implications from the changes in Indonesian industrial relations system. The labor law change. So if you see the journals that I publish, one of my work, Journal of Industrial Relations, an aspect of the research I did from the doctoral degree research. This is, I think, that we can consider this is very good journals in industrial relations, although there are also a few other industrial relations journals, but this, I guess, has an impact factor of 1 point something. And journal, the second journal, Human Resource Management Review, it is the impact factor has been higher now compared to the time I published my work in this journal. It's a very well known, one of an important source for review papers, papers that stimulate thinking, forward thinking in doing new research. I don't really remember the impact factor, but it is high. One of perhaps the highest in this field, human resource management. Another part of that research went into publication in Journal of Asia Business Studies. Two more in one of the Indonesian international journals, hosted by Satya University, International Research Journals in Business Studies. And recently I published 2 book chapters in the Oxford Handbook of Contextual Approaches to Human Resource Management. And yeah, from the experiences I had, published my work, and especially during the first days as PhD students, tried hard to get my works published, and especially published in a high-ranked journal. It's not easy. You have to spend hours and hours, days and days, weeks and weeks to make sure that you contribute something, so that the audience, especially the editor, the reviewers, accept your thinking, your thoughts, your contribution as something important for the community. So you cannot do that later when you did your research, completed your research, and then start to write. No, you have to start from the very beginning. That is why we have to understand that because of the increasing amount of pressure for us academics, including students nowadays, to publish our works, our scientific works, research, especially in journals, and sometimes, especially for master degree and doctoral degree students, they have to publish their works in international journals. Yeah, we have to think that doing research is not just, I want to know something about this and that, therefore I do a research, collect some data, analyze the data, and then write and publish whatever the results are. Now, we have to put first our thinking right from the very beginning. When we do research, the research is or will be contributing something, an element whether it is theory, methodological aspects, empirical evidence, or any kind of any aspects of scientific works. So basically, research is creating new knowledge. When we put this as a discipline in our minds, when we try to consider what should I do, what should I choose to do research, which topic, what are the focus, we have to think about creating new or additional knowledge. Of course, I have to put the quotation marks there, new, or sometimes people ask for the novelty of the research. We have to give meaning in the word new or novelty there, as not always, because we are in the world that has already accumulated so many knowledge that we cannot even read them all, accumulate. It's very difficult to cope with the whole knowledge that we as humans have constructed and accumulated that knowledge that we have until today, and will be accumulating more and more into the future. So sometimes new is tricky here, because it is the way that you can find any kind that it is something different from what you have already known so far. Perhaps it can be from another context, it can be from different theoretical lenses, it can be from a new set of data. For example, you extended the time horizon to analyze a particular problem. So it may give a larger picture rather than a very limited scope of research. Those can be contributing to what we can understand as new knowledge. But of course, you have to build your argument about that. So, thinking about building a new house, so you will put batu bata, brimstone, one upon the other. We design our research, collecting data to add another batu bata. And it's you can see there, it's already batu bata yang lain. So there has been a structure of knowledge already. So you are contributing a piece of knowledge there. And you are expected to do that. So it's not only, as I said, just design whatever you like. You have to design a research that will add a new stone there. Or you put like the other picture, a new book, and get it ordered from the very first one up to the highest one. So we can try to imagine that kind of situation when we talk about doing our research, creating or contributing a new or additional knowledge to an existing knowledge, structured knowledge that we have already seen or read. So when you talk about doing research, designing a research to contribute, we understand, people in scientific world know that they have to find a research gap there. So we have many books, we have so many pieces of knowledge. We have to read them, quote unquote, all to understand what are already there. But in many cases, we know that those knowledge we have their weaknesses. They cannot explain certain aspects in our life, in organizational life, in educational life, in religious life, and in many contexts of our life. So finding missing link in the existing understanding, in existing knowledge structure, that is to find the research gap. So I take Miles 2017, a quotation from the publication Miles, and one of the most prevailing issues in the craft of research is to develop a research agenda and build the research on the development of the research gap. So, so the statement here is, the craft of research. So that's why I said that it's very good to connect not only publishing, but also starting from the beginning to crafting a new research that is built based on or upon a research gap. And although we understand that research gap is missing element, what elements are missing? You have to identify when you read all the materials, all the literature you have. I said before, whether it is theoretical frameworks, whether it is methodological approaches, instruments, etc. Any element in the research literature can be missing, and it is your task as a researcher to find what is missing in the research literature. In doing so, you have to understand first the structure of knowledge that are already there. And this is a big problem because we, especially in Indonesia, cannot have access to all the research databases that exist. Our libraries do not always have subscriptions to world data research database that exists. We have only limited access to them, and therefore, if we reading from the limited resources we have, we can conclude that this is an element that is missing. But if we extend our reading, perhaps our conclusion will be not as right as it was. So other people would remind us, sorry, you have to read this and that, this and that, this and that, just to show us that, the research gap we identified is not correctly at all. So, but we have to start from that kind of thinking. If you consider to publish in serious, high-ranked journals, those journals requires you to have a significant contribution in scientific understanding, then you have to do what they want you to do, not what you want yourself to do something with regard to your research. So a research gap is a way of you to position your research, your contribution in the whole structure of knowledge that we have. It's very difficult to do that, especially if there are so many things that already been there. We have to read them all, structuring them so we can mapping all the pieces of knowledge that we have at hand, and finding a small niche of knowledge that should be there, but it is not there yet. Sometimes, we are in an area that is, as I mentioned about accessibility to resource databases. Sometimes we have very limited access, so it's like a dark night. We don't know. But sometimes in area where literature are still limited, it is there the opportunities to contribute in an area or in areas that are already very well developed. Knowledge are there, but the difficulty to find a gap, a niche of knowledge or understanding will be very difficult. Like mencari jarum di tengah jerami, dan jeraminya besar sekali. Jarum kecil lah. So it is a difficult task for us as researchers if we consider to do serious research work. That is to contribute. If we want to do any kind of research just to collect any data, just to then write something that we like, it may be not as difficult as if you are trying to meet the standards that reputable journals are asking for. So, this is a reminder for us to do serious scholarship. I know students are also the participants in the webinar, and it is perhaps too high to require to students to do what the researchers, professional researchers like us, academics, lecturers, researchers should do. But if you consider yourself to be future lecturers or academics, researchers, you have to think like what professional researchers do think every day. So what is actually research gap? I mentioned earlier already, it's a missing or the missing element in the existing literature. Too little information or knowledge available. It's just to make it easier to understand. So it's like we try to from the puzzle, the pieces. We have tried to put there everything right into the structure, and we still have hole here. So it's still missing. What? You have to tell to the audience, and the audience will judge, will evaluate whether you are right about what is missing. But this is like this. So this is a gap, this is a niche, and our task is to fill the gap. So if you do write literature review, critical literature review, and then you can have a structure of understanding about what's out there. You can structure the knowledge, you can map the knowledge, who are the people in the left-hand side, who are on the right-hand side, who are up there, who are down there. You can do the map and you still see spots that are still missing. You can focus on one or two, but as I said, in a very well-developed field of knowledge, it is usually difficult to find which kind of, what part that are still missing or have little information, little knowledge on that. So this is just a visualization for you to be more, to be easier to understand what are the expectations put on your shoulder as researchers who want to do research and to publish. So it's like, you write, you not only write to the areas that are already so many things written there, but you are writing something that is not any people write on that part. So you make a bridge or a link from one piece of knowledge to the other piece of knowledge. The gap, you feel it. So from that understanding, and it's usually we can identify contribution that researchers do or make when we read, especially the introduction part of a scientific work. So the very first page of an article, a scientific article, for example. Sometimes it's very short, introduction, 1 chapter or 2 chapters, 3 chapters, but you can find there the demonstrations of understanding that the author knows very well what are there, the knowledge that have been accumulated. He or she can present there what is important and then identify what is missing. So this is a framework used by John Swales, if I do not mistakenly remember his name. Is one of the book authors PhD students used to read. So the framework is known as CARS model. Sorry, I write for my students. So it's model CARS, in Bahasa Indonesia order. So CARS model, create a research space. So if you want to do research, create a space that is a gap, a niche that you identify from the existing knowledge that we have. You have to create that. And Swales offer 3 moves framework. First, establish the territory of research, the topic that you are entered. This is usually done by claiming something is important. If you see some examples here, it is usual for us Indonesian researchers, Indonesian people, to when we express our understanding about something, we try to make things complicated, telling things we know that sometimes it's not important for the audience to read. So you have to be very direct to the point. What is central to your work? Whether you express it in your research proposal or for example, a manuscript for publication, you have to claim something is important. So the readers can agree with you or not. whether it is important or not. So if you deal with something important for the community, the scientific community, we all who are part of the scientific community will spend our time to read your manuscript, to read your work. If it is not something we consider important, that we do not want to spend our time to read what is this work about. So claiming centrality, trying to demonstrate your understanding about the topic, the development that has been made on the topic, but this is just to show that you understand the field, the territory. As I mentioned, what is more important is to find what is not there, what is missing, what are the gaps, what is the niche that you are going to fill in. So there are different types of ways to express or to identify a niche or a gap. You can see there, trying to oppose other arguments, or you can show the audience that that elements of knowledge that should be there, but you cannot find in any of the existing literature we have today. That's a gap. Or other kinds of ways to come to a conclusion that we need to do this research. So this is the justification of what you are doing. Knowing something, know them so well is very important. But to contribute to the knowledge we have today, you have to find what is missing. So if we consider that there are so many journals, scientific journals, and therefore there are so many contributions have been made. So almost every day we create knowledge, new or additional knowledge, but there are still things missing. But that's a difficulty. If there has been so thick, the knowledge has been so thick, so it's not something very small or very limited, that it is easy for us to find what is still missing. But the knowledge has been so thick, you have to try to structure one by one, putting that into your map, your intellectual map, your scientific map, and then you can find if there is still a blinking light there showing you, this is something missing that I need to fill in. And then you enter the third move, to state the aim of your research. That is to fill the gap, to occupy the niche. And sometimes people add the structure of the manuscript or paper or book chapter, thesis, or whatever the kind of reports that we make, research report that we make. So this is a framework that I consider useful for me when I did my PhD until now, preparing my manuscripts. Although styles are different from one field to the others, the genre of writing are different, and also the scientific tradition in our fields are different. So I don't want to make this kind of useful knowledge for all, but I think you can consider to use that. So thinking from that point of view, preparing a research for publication, that is to contribute a new knowledge into the existing knowledge we have, and it requires you to read everything that you need to read, you have to read, and from the literature then you identify a niche or a gap, and therefore you try to fill in the gap. That is what sometimes people call an academic research, deriving from literature. But in many times we have situations, new situations, such as this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. It's something that we don't have any experience in the past. If you want to compare the same kind of pandemic, then we go to 1918, flu pandemic, Spanish flu. That is too far from us. There are, not so far kind of disease problem for us humans, SARS, MERS, etc. But at the scale of this COVID-19 pandemic, we don't have. So this is a new experience, a new phenomenon, and it creates so many troubles. So from situations like COVID-19 pandemic, maybe the existing knowledge we have cannot explain what that we are the problems that we are facing today because of the new phenomenon. So this is another type of research. The first one, academic or scientific, driving from the literature. Second one, driving from the real world problems because of something unprecedented, something new. But again, if you want your work to be considered an important contribution in the scientific world, you have to get back to the literature. So what can be contributed from the study around, for example, COVID-19 pandemic? We have to be aware that scientific work, scientific contributions, people consider they have standards. You have to argue, you have to justify, you have to show that your research are done correctly, right, according to scientific understanding that we have. Or you may make any modification that are still considered good, right, and what are the contributions at the end. So this is a kind of research that we can also consider, and COVID-19 pandemic is a kind of context that really provide us with rich knowledge, rich understanding. So that is why, as also a leader, a rector at my university, I reminded my fellow academics here at UKSP, don't let this event go without your scrutiny. This is something unprecedented for us. There may come another pandemic, big, very big, even bigger than this one, maybe. So learn a lot from this experience. So this is COVID-19 pandemic provide us with a context for phenomenon-based research. Usually it contributes to new understandings because of it is something unprecedented. So yeah, again I have said about literature review, but this should be put into the understanding from the very beginning. Research is done for contribution to add a new piece of knowledge. So we have to be very careful, to be very critical in doing literature review. So not just to accumulate. We have to evaluate. We have to criticize the knowledge that we read, we gain from other researchers. Of course, not to make yourself just to make any difference from others, then you're critiquing people without having sound understanding or a good solid foundation. So this is an accumulation of understanding, process to refine your ideas. So it is something, sometimes if you do this on and on, it may not stop, but you have to stop somewhere. Enough is enough. Because of what I said before, sometimes in this current, this very moment of knowledge development, everything is there. I had a situation that when I want to publish one of my work, basically there has been a niche, a gap in the literature that I want to address. I did my research, data is there, analyze the data, structuring the themes that I want to then separate one contribution to the other, and then one of them, I thought it was a good contribution. I'm still writing about the paper, and then I read, went to the library just to clarify things, back to the literature. Already from the empirical evidence, empirical findings, but just to clarify the understandings, I went back to the literature to clarify things, and then I found new things to follow through, and then go to new publications appeared at that time, and I found that somebody is now writing about what I'm going to publish. Wow. Sometimes you face that kind of situation, and you have to you have to try to find a way to of course not only one. If there's only one, you can still argue that virtually no one, or only limited, less research has been done. We can still use that. But you are not contributing as the very first person to come with that kind of idea. It sometimes make you frustration. But this is a process. Sometimes done very early in your research design, but sometimes you keep doing that all along the research process, even when until empirical findings already there, you keep reading just to clarify things. And because I was doing a qualitative research, and it is an iterative process. It was an iterative process between literature and data, just to make sure everything was okay. But yeah, I had that kind of feeling, that kind of experience, yeah, a big frustration because of what I consider, wow, this is something for me brilliant, but it was not. Yeah, some other people have contributed first, but you have to still position yourself accordingly, because they have contributed before you. So yeah, literature review is very important here. At the core of theorizing process, you have to read a lot, read critically, yeah, so you can then understand what are there and what are missing there. That's again and again the theme that I want to ask you as researchers to follow if you consider you want to publish your research in high-rank journals. So this is a process that is should be constantly doing. So this is just to separate or to distinguish processes done. I'm on the right hand side, yeah, qualitative research. So here we usually generate new theoretical understanding, and usually in quantitative research they try to develop a new understanding here, in making hypotheses to be tested, and whether it is proved or not when the research is done. And the process is not the same from one type of research, quantitative and qualitative here. But yeah, I guess you have to choose your path. What you consider right for you in doing your research. I'm a qualitative person, not really into quantitative, although I was very quantitative in the very beginning of my university education, because I like math, physics, but then I turned to be a more qualitative person. I consider that for quantitative research, it is here. Your literature review will lead you to create new knowledge. What are the variables that are not that have not been tested yet? If people already tested the variables that you are also now choosing, you may not make any contribution, except you use different method, using new set of data. Perhaps you can still do the same, taking same variables, but otherwise the contribution is less, or maybe no contribution at all. So be very careful with that. So you have to make different start from here, yeah. Develop hypotheses that are not taken yet. for testing. But the idea is the same. Finding a niche, finding a gap, and then preparing your research, collecting the data, and so on, up until you answer the research question you develop because of the gap that you identified before. So there should be a consistency from the idea, the topic, the important aspect that you are focusing on, the literature that you scrutinize, lead you to a gap, to a research questions, to you need to develop more your literature review, but literature review has been done already here at the very beginning. This maybe you add more theoretical framework here to stimulate thinking in order to answer the research question. Your data, high-rank journals requires robust way of handling research. So every piece of process, every steps you go along, people will ask. I had that kind of problem from the editor of the journals that I wanted to publish my work. One of them, Journal of Management Studies, one of the highest ranked journal in management studies. I sent my manuscript there. I went until the second phase of revision, but when I did that, I was already in Indonesia, back from Australia, back to normal. Back to normal, it means in Indonesia, in our context as academics, is teaching load is high. Sometimes you do administrative job, and you have to find silent moment to deal with critical review that people make on your manuscript, and I could not pass their test. I sent my revision, but they concluded that I cannot I couldn't meet their expectations, so it stopped there. So sometimes you feel not easy as an author, hearing or reading critical remarks made by the reviewers, but you have to face it if you want to publish in very good journals. So I guess that's my presentation. I take the angle. I believe that other presenters will take different angles to enrich the discussion on the topic, on the theme that we deal with in this webinar. Ibu Moderator, I take it back to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? Yes, thank you. So a quick introduction. My name is Rizky Junior Uli, and I have the privilege to lead this question and answer session by the moderator. So without any further ado, let's start with our first question. The first question comes from Ibu Sandri Epe Jahimo, and the question is, can critical review be taught to our students? What is the easiest way to teach them?
Is there any from the chat room so I can?
Yes. So the first question comes from Ibu Sandri. Okay. And the question is, can critical review be taught to our students? and
Okay.
what is the easiest way to teach them. So
Okay, this is, yeah. It's not easy to develop and then to have critical minds. There are sources about critical thinking. One of them from a US critical thinking scholars. He and his wife did research on critical thinking. People consider they have critical thinking, but when it was tested to understand it in detail, we can claim we have, but it's actually not. People claim they have, but they don't have. That's the problem. So this is something that should be done from the early beginning, teaching our kids not to accept things as it is, to let them ask or give questions to anything. So they have a free way of expressing themselves through questions or to expressing their ideas. It should be like that. So that students, especially at the level of on the level of university or higher education students, can be more easily to be taught, to be educated, to be critical thinker. But it's something that needs a constant effort. But in order for us to, of course, we have some elements of critical thinking. Therefore, with critical review of being research, you may learn from very good or the best or excellent articles. See how those researchers, very experienced, senior, and high-ranked scholars, how they read the literature, how they position themselves, in the structure of existing knowledge, the way they express whether there is and what is the gap or the niche. I learned that way when I participated in academic writing workshops. We were provided by the facilitators with the articles, good articles, and then we try to analyze one article to another, parts by parts. So what is the point the authors trying to make? To see the elements, whether he or she of them they claim importance. What is the thing that they consider is important? We can train ourselves like that, and I still do that, especially in finding ways to express, because you can see different styles of expressions in academic scientific papers made by different authors, and if you go from one field to the other, I think you can see the difference in language, in styles. So that can train you to see how people do critical review. But of course, you have to start to express your own idea. When you read something, you have to express what is your understanding about the reading, and you try to see a point of difference that you can make from the reading that you are dealing with. Try to connect with other paper or reading to see to support your way of thinking, and try to follow on the idea that you are critiquing, whether they have supporters, whether they have support arguments there. So you can see two camps of thinking develop their arguments. So if you follow this line of argument or the other, you can see how you can develop your critical understanding about differences, about critical view of one to the other ways of thinking. So I guess that's probably practical ways to develop your skills in critical review. Learn from they who have already a lot of experiences, and finding best articles or very good articles in your field. I guess it's easy, but learn from them. Sometimes we just read to get the contents, not the way they express their ideas. No, I did both. Get the contents and also learn from them the way they express their ideas, the way they criticize others, the way that they defend themselves, and so on and so on. Get back to you, moderator.
Thank you, sir. That is a very amazing answer. Now we have the second questions comes from Hanisa Hanafi, and this is going to be our last question as well, because due to the limit of our time. The question is, does our writing have to be written in active voice sentences, considering that Grammarly always asks for it? Sir, now it is the time for you to answer. Thank you.
Okay, does our writing have to be written in active voice? It depends on the field. Most fields prefer passive voice. I guess in the field of, for example, sociology or anthropology, it's more active voice is used, but it depends. In my field, in management studies, majority of journals using passive, but I guess in journals that are more and more accepting qualitative and more variative methodological approaches, is open nowadays to see scientific papers using active voice and using I, we, which is not usual in the past. But yeah, I guess every journal has their own standards of styles that you have to try yourself to to follow, to fit in. So you cannot do whatever you like. They have their own standards there, models or style of referencing. You have to follow their author guidance very strictly. Others open, but some journals they want you to follow strictly what the rules they have, and you have to sometimes have reference to previous articles published in the journals if you want to target to publish in the journal. So if you have nothing, I had one of my manuscript rejected because I don't have any reference to articles from the journal. I target to publish my work there, but I don't referring to any single article from the journal. It's a mistake. I consider that. Yeah, of course, if you make a big contribution, they may consider. But if they consider that it's a usual contribution and you don't respect the journal, referring to the articles they have, I think it's a mistake, and I consider that I made a mistake with that kind of situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So apparently there are a lot of questions in the chat box, and due to the duration limit, we have to limit this and end these sessions. Now, I would like to finish this takeover and handing back this mic to Ibu Linda as the moderator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rizky. Very grateful to Pak Neil, who has led us with the first discussion on his experience in preparing research and writing and publishing his papers. And this is something that we may not have considered before. So thank you very much, Pak Neil. We hope that you will stay with us until the end of the webinar, because there will be a slot for the speakers to highlight or to put some food for thought for the audience to dig more on this particular topic. So thank you very much, Pak Neil.